All right, guys, welcome back. I'm Dickens71. My name is Dylan. I don't have good news. So if you watched the last video, you know that I had plans to go out testing tonight. Well, that's obviously not happening because Clifford has some serious issues. So all I had to do today was play on the laptop a little bit, get the boost controllers playing nice, doing exactly what I wanted them to do, and change the oil. So that sounds pretty simple, right? So why am I still here in the shop? Well, these things are simple until you run into problems like this. So if you don't know what this is a valve spring, or at least what's left of one. So when I drained the oil and I checked the drain pan, these guys were just chilling, bits and pieces of a valve spring. So we're waiting on Austin to get here, so he's gonna bring us some new ones. I'm pretty sure that that's an inner spring. None of the outer springs seem to be hurt, so I run the BTR dual 660s. I've had them on there for a long time. They're pretty old, so it's no surprise that maybe they were getting weak or that they should have been changed. But to be broken, I'm very surprised about it. I never would have expected that, especially with the cam that I have. It's not very aggressive. We've been spinning it some pretty good RPM, but I don't think that it was a valve train issue as far as RPM problems, except for maybe a couple of times hitting the limiter up there. That could have easily caused some problems. But anyway, it doesn't matter now. We have a broken inner valve spring. Haven't been able to find out which one it is until we start pulling springs off and check them at their full height as opposed to their installed height, because nothing seems out of place from what I can see just by pulling the valve covers and rockers. So while Austin was on his way here and picking up some new springs for me, I decided to check over the rest of the CO2 stuff and do the boost controller settings like I was talking about, get on the laptop and play around. And that's when I found out that my gate was leaking. So the wastegate has a top and a bottom and a diaphragm in the center, and mine was bypassing CO2 between the two. So what does that mean? That means if I apply dome pressure, it's going to the bottom and helping the bottom open. So it's just equalizing. It's not actually making more boost. At least it's not making more boost as the way it's intended to. So that's probably why my gate has been cracking open this whole time and slow to spool between what I make on the starting line and what I make down track. So we always figured that this turbo should light way faster than it does, and it just hasn't, but we just, haven't really worried about it because it's been fine. It's not that it's been bad, we just expected it to be better. So anyway, that is probably a good indicator of why that's happening. So I have the wastegate all torn apart, putting new springs in it, checking the diaphragm, gonna put it all back together. So hopefully that at least fixes that issue, and the only thing that we have left to do is find the broken spring, swap that out, and maybe go testing tonight. It's already somewhere around 9:30, I don't even know what time it is. But we're gonna try to get this done because we're gonna try to race tomorrow for about 3,000 to win. So there's a no prep race, the track's adding a lot of money, there's supposed to be a full field of us. And if that's the case, it's going to be somewhere around $3,000 to win, and I want to go to it. So let's get busy. Okay, so finally we're back in here in the shop after driving all over God's green earth. We found some pieces to help Clifford out. So like I said, we had a broken valve spring. An inner valve spring is what we determined it to be, but it turns out that there's more than one. So Austin came over. We started tearing the thing apart while I was working on the turbo stuff, working on the wastegate. I took it apart like 10 times, tried to seal it up, couldn't get it to do what I wanted to do. It was still bleeding pressure from one side to the other. So I actually went and got another one. So thankfully, Hardway coming in clutch again. They had a Turbo Smart 60 mil sitting on the shelf that was used off of one of their previous projects. So I went and picked this up from them. Gonna put the right spring combo in this guy. I really want to run the CO2 this weekend, but I'm a little bit afraid of making all those changes the night before a big race. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a spring combo in here that was similar to what I had before and just step back down to the single solenoid, or possibly even just stuff a little over 20 pounds of spring in there and just let it ride. I don't know. We'll see. But so we got the wastegate back, and then we had, there was no point in going with a wastegate if we didn't have valve springs. So Austin hit up his buddy John Weeks, who's a very, very good tuner here locally, got deep connections, and he happened to have a set of springs on the shelf. So he set them out by the garage. We swung by and picked those up. So big thank you to both Ryan and John for hooking us up with parts. Ryan, of course, with Hardway Performance, John with Triple X, and he does tons and tons of GM tuning, getting into the Mopar market. So check both of those guys out for anything that you need, you know, gas or diesel and gas respectively between the two. One of those guys can hook you up or know where you should go. But we've got the springs in check. Austin's going to get those torn apart while I continue to work on the wastegate. Make sure we can get everything happy. And then, let's see, it's midnight, a little after midnight. So we're going to see what we can do. Supposed to leave it to go to the race at 7. So it sounds like to me like we got 7 hours to get this thing back together. We'll see. So I told you guys that I got this wastegate from Ryan down there at Hardway. And the diesel guys, they do things a little bit different than us gas guys. But I was blown away. Like, the amount of gate spring that these guys run in their gates is absolutely, it blows my mind. So, of course, diesel guys do it to kind of kill drive pressure, not necessarily to lower boost. They do it to make sure they don't overspin the turbine too much. But they do things with regulators and yada, yada, yada. That's not even my area of expertise. But I want you to check out how much gate spring they had stuffed in this thing. So I literally had to put this in the press over there in order to get enough pressure on this so it didn't just explode. But let's see. They have 1, 2, 3 springs in there. So they had this guy jammed. Ugh. So just a pro tip here. If you're doing wastegates with substantial spring pressures by yourself, find a press to do it in. If you don't have a press, go find somebody with a press. Go get one from Harbor Freight, whatever you got to do. Because chalking this guy up in here, and sorry, I really don't have nice plates to stack this stuff on, but chalking this guy up in here just enough to hold the seat down while you take the bolts out is tremendously helpful. So if you have so much spring pressure that you can't hold it down by hand while also putting the bolts in, you got to have something else to hold it. Well, in my case, this 60 mil gate is too tall, with the springs especially, it's too tall for a vise. So a press is way better, and it's way easier to use. So just a pro tip. All right, so what's the word on the valve springs? I've been outside with that gate. What's going on?
Well, found something kind of interesting. Got four springs that are good and 4 that are broke. The inner springs on all the intake valves were broke off on the seat. And what I found was when these springs were put on, the stock seals were left on. So basically, BTR sells you the springs with the seals that fit those springs, and this step on the seal does not let that spring sit all the way flat on the bottom of the head.
Oh, yeah, so it needs to be down there on the bottom, okay.
Yep, down here. So what we did is we had some springs we got from John. We found some BTR seals. I put those on. I put his springs and retainers in, and we're gonna try it out. We're gonna see if that works out for us or not.
So I didn't even know that was a thing. That's interesting. That's definitely something to look for, because the whole story with these valve springs is that these springs here are BTR dual 660s that I bought originally when I first did the motor swap. So these have been some of the ones that you and I put on.
You put those on your first motor?
Yeah, with the 6-liter, we put those on together or whatever. Okay. So I have since transferred those springs to 3 different engines. One of them had a very short life because it spun a bearing. Anyway, but I did put these springs on sometime around September of last year. I would have put these guys on. So I don't know how long they've been broken, because we found one that had some broken pieces stuck inside the spring, right?
Yep.
It was still in there.
When I pulled the spring off, it just had a piece stuck on the bottom of the seal. And then we found one that I pulled off, and it actually had pushed all the way down past that first lip on the seal.
Yeah. It had made its way down to the bottom. Okay.
It crammed itself all the way down to the bottom, just getting beat to death.
Yeah.
But I mean, we got four good springs, so we're gonna put those on the other side, and we're gonna make it work.
Yeah. So basically, we're assuming that since all the intake valves on this side were broken, that we're probably going to find a similar story on the other side. We haven't quite made our way there yet, but that is where we're headed next. So we're going to get busy with it, and definitely something that I learned. I didn't know, I consider myself to know pretty good bit about LS engines, but I didn't know that it would introduce such severe coil bind by using the stock valve seals with the dual springs. It makes complete sense. I just didn't even know that that was a thing. Totally down with learning new stuff and glad that we found this problem before it became an actual problem. So we have 4 broken intake springs, the inner ones only. Luckily, the outers were still there to keep the valve up. We're gonna move over to the passenger side. Hopefully it's better news over there, but we're assuming it's gonna be similar condition. And definitely watch those stock valve seals if you're using dual springs. That's glad to have picked that up. But we talked about my valve seals being wrong. Well, I dug through all the parts that I had, and I only had a bag for one side. Okay, so I went digging through the shed, and I only had enough valve seals for one side of the engine. So I drove all the way to town. We went to Austin's shop. We went to his dad's shop. We thought that we had an extra set from one of our previous cam swap laying around, but we didn't. So what do you do when it's 4 a.m. and you really want to race? Well, you just make your own valve seals. So I don't know if this is the worst idea I've ever had or the greatest idea I've ever had. But basically, we turn one of these into one of these using one of these. So,
good luck to us.
Hey, tell me what you think. You know, it had kind of occurred to me like earlier the night, kind of sarcastically, like, oh, maybe we should cut one down, ha 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 ha. Never would do that. And then a couple hours later, we're cutting one down. So, just to clarify, this is just for the weekend. You know, I'm pretty sure that we could run this thing without valve seals and it would make the trip just fine, just considering what we're doing. We're not going to be street driving it. We're not going to be doing this, doing that. Just making a couple of passes. There's supposed to be between, 6 to 8 cars in the class, so that would only be 3 or 4 rounds of driving at most. So I think that we would be okay without them, but I don't really see any downside to cutting them down. So that's what we're doing. We chop these babies up. We're getting the seat moved. We're gonna put our good springs that we got from John, and we're gonna slap those on. We're gonna use these custom seals, and that's custom with a K, by the way. We're gonna use these custom seals and hopefully go win that chicken.
We're gonna start developing these seals. We're gonna sell them. Called Diggins Racing Seals.
Oh yeah?
Yep. Sponsored by Michelob Ultra.
There wasn't even any Mickeys involved in this one.
That's a fact. I think it might be a little crazy of an idea, but it might be a little delusional since it's almost 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I've been working on this truck since 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
What is sleep?
So Austin's been working on it since about 9. I've been out here since about 4. So I'm 12 hours in on the truck. I've been up since about 4 a.m. And I anticipate that if we go rounds today, if we go rounds tonight, it'll be about another 4 a.m. before we get back home. But
You might actually be sleeping on the tree. Let's hope not, though.
literally sleeping on the tree?
You might actually be taking a nap at the
Yeah, I don't know about that. I have won my last 8 pairs on the tree, so I'm going to try to keep that streak going. But I got more custom seals to make. See ya. In regards to the valve seals that I'm custom making, I've seen smarter people with worse ideas, and that's just all there is to it, right? Like, we're going to go racing. It's going to burn some oil. But we're going racing, so let's go with it. So when it's 6 a.m., it's hard to remember to do YouTube stuff. But short and sweet is, we got all the valve seals on. We got our custom valve seals on. Austin got all the springs back in, so that's great. We get the valve cover on. All the stuff's buttoned up, ready to go. I just finished up putting the wastegate on. So I got it on, got it plumbed up. Gonna go back and run just a single 3-port like I had before, just for simplicity's sake, on the new 14-pound spring. My plan is to see if I can get at least one test hit in, because this is, technically speaking, a new converter, new crossover, new valve springs, custom valve seals, different wastegate, different spring, different air. It's no prep. I haven't really been on one in a while. I mean, I haven't even made any Mexican street hits. So this is all in all going to be interesting after running on absolutely zero sleep. So we have the truck on the lift, just finished the gate, putting the tools away, and we're about to get loaded up. So there's nothing. Let's see if she'll fire up. This is first startup since we did all the things. Let's see if it makes a hellacious racket and oil pressure and whatever else we need. Let's see. I think that'll do, boy. I think so. Heck yes. Heck yes. So I guess it's time to get loaded. No time for a nap now. Let's go. So it's been a couple hours since we've been outside. It was daylight when we came in. Dark for most. Daylight again.
Morning.
Top of the morning to you. What year is it?
What year is it? Good morning, boys and girls. It's race day.
So we have made it here to Albany, Georgia, US19, the no prep race. We're gonna enter in the all-wheel drive class today and see what we can do, just checking out some test and tune action. We just rolled in the gate, just about to get unloaded, just kind of seeing where everybody's at and what's going on. So stay tuned, wish us luck.
If you're not here, I'm gonna pull for you. We're gonna write your name down and tell you who you got to run. Because I'm not gonna hold up the show for two people. The name, number, and number on the chip. So you don't have to be worried about well tripping for lane. It's already been on the chip. Right and left. Okay, are we ready? Who wanna be the first player to pull?
I'm short, sorry. Let her in.
I need you to come over here when you get your name. Come over here.
It's just different.
Okay, so quick update. They axed the all-wheel drive class. So we got here, they asked me about it. I said, yes, let's do it. Coming up there, they told us that, you know, they would have enough to make a class, and then all of a sudden they don't, even though there's like 5 or 6 of us here. I don't know why we can't do a 4-car shootout for the posted advertised price, whatever. So we went ahead and jumped up in the all-wheel drive, or in the Run What You Brung, sorry. We've jumped up in that. We drew a pretty fast truck. I can't remember the name of it, but I've watched a lot of videos on him. The dude's bad, he gets down. So, you know, it is what it is, but you can't win if you don't race, and that's what we came here to do. We're not gonna go home and not race about it, so let's see what happens. All right, so we're getting lined up for first round. This is who we drew. So I've watched a couple of videos on him. Guy gets down the track pretty good. Obviously, it's substantially lighter than I am, but anyway, we came here to race, and that's what we're doing. So I have got by far the spiciest tune-up I've ever put in the truck ever. So I actually have the bottom reference line cool off and 100% duty to the dome. So basically, whatever boost it makes is gonna make, and we will see what happens. Put out. Gonna try to find a video of the race, but holy crap, was that wild. So I told you guys that I had put in the wildest tune-up that I ever had, and I wasn't lying by any means. This was by far the most boost I've ever done anything with. And it's funny because I saw the most boost that this motor's ever seen when I was on the brake for about 3 seconds. So from the time I hit the two-step, 3 seconds in, I was at 24 pounds of boost. When I let go of the button, I had the map sensor pinned. It's a 3-bar map, and I had it pinned there at 30-something pounds. So that's how our run went. There's no telling how much more boost it made because obviously the map sensor doesn't go there. And it also blew my EGR port off the side of the intake. So I had an EGR port on here that I was using for an intake air temperature sensor that I had there at one point, but I had since deleted it, just put a plug there. Well, it blew the entire aluminum block out of the side of the manifold. Now, that's encouraging because it didn't blow aluminum chunks out of the engine block. So that's a win. We still have oil pressure. I just stuck a rag in the hole and drove it back to the trailer. But that's unfortunately going to do it for our weekend, but it just goes right on par with our luck of getting the valve springs all sorted and getting valve seals cut. But it didn't burn any oil. It didn't lose oil pressure. It didn't blow holes in the block. And by God, this motherfucker tried to leave on 5,500 RPM and 30-something pounds of boost. So if we can make that work, we can make this thing go really fast. So this is the guy right here that put me out first round versus KC Max, who's a big-time street racer. Anyway, so left lane's KC Max, big-time street racer, won a ton of races. Right lane is the guy that put me out. I know I laid out a pretty good pass, and he was miles ahead of me. It's gonna be a race right here. I'm calling it now. Whoever wins this round is going to the finals. I'm just calling it right now. Got it. Right lane one, the truck got it. So it doesn't make me feel bad that the guy that put me out put out KC Max. That's all right. Winning and all is good, but have you ever got to go to sleep until you were done sleeping? Now that is something that feels good. So it was a very long weekend, but I'm glad to be home and glad to be back. Okay, so it's the next day. We've got back home, and I just want to say that I was completely right. So I called it as soon as Alabama Patches, which is the name of the truck that beat me. I learned his name on the way home. I was looking for videos and such. Anyway, so Alabama Patches, I completely called it that he was going to go to the finals, and he did. So he lost in the finals after doing a gigantic wheel stand, and then when the truck came down, it got all crazy. Some excellent driving on his part to keep that together, keep it gathered up and out of the wall. But he made it to the finals where he lost against a car called Chicken Hawk. Chicken Hawk has a really bad to the bone RX-7. One of our buddies named Robert drives it. Great group of people to be around, all around the S10 guys too. They were super awesome. I was bummed out about my class getting canceled. I was bummed out that we worked all night long basically for nothing because we drove up there to run in a particular class that they canceled, and I was butthurt about it at the time. But anyway, but that's not what it's about. So I said it multiple times, but when you come across hard stuff like we had, the hard stuff is good because you're supposed to race anyway. We got up there and our class was canceled, but we raced anyway. It would have been way too easy to come home and see those broken valve springs and go, oh man, our weekend's done. But I raced anyway. So that's what's important here is it doesn't always have to be win lights and paychecks. Racing is racing. They call it that, and not winning. Just because you didn't win doesn't mean the weekend was bad. Just because it didn't go the way you wanted doesn't mean it was bad. Because what we proved is that if you want it bad enough, you can race anyway. We had broken valve springs, we fixed. We had a leaky wastegate, we went and got another one. We put that one on. Our class was canceled. We got another one. There's ways to race if you want to do it. There's ways to win if you want to do it, and we did our best. So let's look at the pros of all this. So we put the most boost that this thing has ever seen, like by far, almost double, and it's still together. We still have oil pressure. We still have a motor. We still have an engine block. It didn't spit a head gasket. The damage to the intake is minor. It just blew out a plug on the side. I may swap to something different. I don't know, but all in all, it just proves that our team is working right. So Austin helped me out a ton. Hardway and those guys helped me out with parts a ton. Thanks to John again. So it just shows that if you hustle, if you just literally hustle, you can make things happen. Now that doesn't always mean a win, because sometimes the guy is just better than you, and that's the case this time. Alabama Patches was just better than me, but he was better than a lot of people. So I couldn't be happier with the weekend. Sure, I would love a win light. Everybody wants one. But at the end of the day, we worked all through the night, got the truck done, got it ready, got it on the trailer, got it up there, entered a class that we had no business being in. We gave them a showing. I 100% believe that everyone there in the crowd underestimated me. I had multiple people come up to me and say, man, I had never expected that out of that truck. Now, I didn't make a perfectly clean pass, and I pedaled it, and once he was too far out there, I lifted, but it's, lots of things went on in a very short period of time. But I was able to prove that we have a tune-up in the truck that will take power. We have suspension in the truck that on a no prep tried to eat 30 pounds for breakfast. Like, it tried to take it. I mean, and it was hazing the tires, and the front end was fighting me, but it was driving. It's not like I was just annihilating the tire. There was no tire smoke. The truck was trying to drive away off of 30 pounds on a no prep. These are huge wins in my book and stuff that, considering what we had going. So we had absolutely zero testing. So I haven't done any no prep racing since February. I haven't even been focused about it, haven't even thought about it. So to go no prep racing on a big tune-up against a badass car and driver with a new turbo kit, basically one half of the turbo kit is new. So we have a new turbo kit, a new converter. Now, we've ran the converter before, but only 2 passes. We hadn't done any data logging with it or anything in its current state. So new turbo kit, new converter, back on the radials that we haven't been on in a long time, new shocks, new wastegate, new CO2 setup that we tried to make work, but we ended up abandoning it basically in the staging lanes. So there was like 5 different areas that everybody else would have gone home over, or never even left home. They just would have called it quits. But we raced anyway, and that's something I couldn't be more proud of. Just a huge thanks to Austin for helping me out so much. I never would have got the valve spring swapped over in time and everything else that we had to do. So he dove right in, got to work on the motor while I could get everything else ready. I got the trailer hooked up, all the pieces it takes to go racing I was able to do because I was at my wit's end trying to figure out what was going on with the motor in the first place. So huge thanks to Austin. Couldn't have done it without him. I'm sorry, buddy, that we didn't get to turn on a win light, but I am damn proud of what we were able to do against all the odds and against all the new pieces, the no testing, the no this, no that. So I think we got a hot rod coming. If you've made it this far, thank you guys for sticking around. Thanks for watching. I'm Diggins E71. My name is Dylan. We're going to get this thing gathered up. We're going to get the pieces swapped out. We're going to get it fixed, and we're going to go do some more racing. So please stay tuned and watch the next episode, and we'll see what happens. See you next time.